Hey everybody! Today, y'all are going to be learning about describing and displaying data. So we're going to look at graphs and also how we can describe a couple of aspects of some data. So first off, let me get this here. Okay, so on your own, let's answer the top two questions. If I was here in class, we would actually collect our class data, but since I'm not here, I'm just going to give you some data to work with. So make a list of social media apps you predict might be most used by students in class, and which app do you think is going to be the favorite? So go ahead and do that. Then let's go on and do the next part, which here's some data that I made up kind of based off of last year's data. So let's pretend we had a class of, what's the total here? Class of 35 students. 12 preferred TikTok, 9 Instagram, 9 Snapchat, and then 5 just some other app. So this is categorical data. The two types of ways we're going to display categorical data are in a bar chart or a pie chart. So for a bar chart, you're going to need an X and a Y axis, but just the top right quadrant. And then on the left-hand side, this is where we're going to have the number of students. So I'm going to go maybe up by twos, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. And this is called a frequency. So how frequent do people fall in these categories? So this is our frequency measure. And this is going to be our favorite app down here. We've got TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, and some other. For a bar chart, you've made these before. We just draw bars to represent how many students fall in each category. So there were 12 in TikTok, and then 9 in Instagram, 9 in Snapchat, and then 5 in that other category. And that's it. That's a bar chart. Right. And then a pie chart, we need to graph percents. So for TikTok, the percent's going to be 12 out of the total 35 students. So 12 out of 35 is about 34%. 9 out of 35 is about 26%. And then 5 out of 35 is 14%. So 26%, that's close to 25. So that's about a quarter of this pie chart for both of those. So this could be my Instagram. This could be my Snapchat. And then 34 and 14, just make one of them smaller, one a little bigger. So this could be my TikTok, and this could be my other. So these are going to make a note that that's going to be a percent graph. All right, so that was displaying categorical data. For quantitative data, so that's numerical data, there's a couple of different ways that we can plot this. We can make a dot plot or a histogram. So here's data for how many hours do you work during the school year, hours a week. And I just went ahead and organized it in ranking order. For 0 hours, there were 8 students, and then 1 student, and so on, just so that we can hop into this next part a little bit easier. So let's create a dot plot for the class data. The dot plot, what you're going to do is just pretty much create a number line. And our numbers are going to go from 0 all the way up to 20. So 1, so all the way from 0 to 20. These are number of hours per week. And then you just put dots. So up here I had 8 students who worked 0 hours. So you just draw 8 dots. At 2 hours, we had 1 person. 4 hours, there were 2 people. 4 hours. one person at 5. 7 had 2 people. 8 had 6. 2 people at 9. 4 people at 10. 3 people at 12. Cool. So it's a little tedious when we have lots of data, but there are 35 dots that represent 35 people, and that is a dot plot. For a histogram, it's going to be kind of like a bar chart. And we're going to have categories, let's say between 0 and 5 hours, 5 and 10 hours, and then 10 to 15 and 15 to 20. Awesome. So for the 0 to 5, it's actually going to be 0 to 4. 5 is going to go in the next category. So it's kind of from the lower number to almost the top number. So between 0 and 5 hours, we've got 8, 9, 10, 11 people. So let's go up 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 again. So our frequency. So 11 people work between 0 and 5 hours. So that's these people. And now between 5 and 9, I've got 1, 2, 3, 9, 10, 11. Also 11 people between the 5 and 10. Then I've got 7 between 10 and 14. And then it looks like I've got 6 people for the last group. So that's a histogram. Puts people into groups of like a range of hours. For that, you can make these bars as wide or as narrow as you think works for the data. 4 bars for this sort of data seemed like it was good enough. All right, so let's move on and talk about the shapes of data distributions. So if we have a distribution so we graph a dot plot or a histogram, and the shape looks like a bell curve, or it's the same on both sides, there's a peak in the middle, we call that symmetric. So that just means it's the same. It's not more low numbers or more high numbers. If it's skewed where there's more low numbers, this is called skewed right. There's a tail going off to the right. And then the flipped version of that, if there's a bunch more high numbers and not as many left, that's skewed left. So for our class, if we go back and look at our distribution, it's a little bit more apparent in the histogram over here, but we've got more low numbers than high numbers, so that would be a skewed right distribution. All right, so we can measure the center of our distribution. So that's describing where the center is with either the mean or the median. So the mean is the average. The formula I'll show you, but you know how to find an average. You add up all the numbers and then divide by how many we have. So the kind of statistic equation or kind of variable for our mean, this is the variable for the mean. It's an x with a little bar on top. And the formula is going to be we add up all of the values, and the mathy little symbol that means add up is the Greek sigma. So add up all of the x values. So add up the data. And we're going to divide by the total number of data points. And that's just the letter n for number. So that's the number of data points. So for us, I already did this. If we add up all of the class hours numbers. For us, it's 7.8 hours for all of the people that worked. And then the median is just the middle number. So just going in from the outside, finding the middle number. For this data, the median was 8 hours. All right, we can also talk about how spread out the distribution is. There's a lot of ways to talk about that, but we're just going to focus on the range. So the range is just the max minus the min. So for our data, 20 hours minus a minimum of 0 is a range of 20 hours. Right. Outliers are data points outside of the normal pattern. So let's say that I wanted to add myself to this data set, and I work 60 hours per week. If we add that new value to the data, I want to see how that would change. And you're going to add up all the data points, divide by 36 people now, and our new mean is 8.3 hours. The middle number, though, is still 8 hours. So the mean changes. The mean is affected by higher numbers because we're adding up all the data points, but the median is not going to change usually for a really high or really low outlier because the middle number is not going to be affected by that high number. So when you're asked to describe data, so if you're asked to describe this data set, little way to remember it is with the word socks without a K. S is for shape, so describe if it's symmetric or skewed. Are there any outliers? If there are, mention them. Center, so that's the mean or the median. And then the last is the spread. How spread out is the data. You can use the range for that. Right on. I'll see y'all tomorrow.